Hey guys, Bud from Survive at Southwest. A little about me is I've been in the emergency services, search and rescue for close to 2 decades now. And I'm here to pass on a little bit of what I've learnt over the years on how to survive if you get lost out in the bush. Now, one thing people do when they get lost, straight away is they'll panic. When they panic, they'll do things. They'll just do stuff without thinking. They'll walk, they'll try and find water straight away, they'll try and get out of where they are. That is one of the worst things you can do. That is how you run into trouble very quickly. The best thing you can do when you get lost is stop, think about your situation, take stock of everything that you've got, and work out a plan. So there is a hierarchy of importance when it comes to surviving, and that hierarchy is medical, shelter, water, food, rescue. Medical first, that's self-explanatory. If you've hurt yourself, you want to get on top of that before it becomes a lot worse than it is. Now, a lot of people ask me, why shelter? Why shelter straight away? As it's currently about 32 degrees here, I'm in the shade, which is good. If I was somewhere, say up north, where there wasn't much shade, I would become hypothermic pretty quickly. And once you become hypothermic, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. During winter down here though, there has been nights where it has been -1, -2 degrees. So exposure is a real issue. So exposure can kill you or put you in a dire situation within a matter of hours. Water, well, you can survive 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. So obviously water I want to be finding first. Now if I've got water, which I have a little bit, left. I've been out here for a couple hours now, and it wasn't a full water bottle when I come out, purely for the purposes of this video. I gotta find some water. I know where I am, I know I can get out of where I am. I'm not too far in the bush, so I'm not gonna find shelter because I know I can get out before then. But we're just gonna go through a few ways of finding some water. If you can find water, then, or a reliable source of water, then you can survive out here and give yourself critical time so rescue can find you. Now, on a side note, one of the most important things about heading out bush is letting people know where you are. As I said, I've been in search and rescue for nearly 2 decades. Between me and my parents, we have nearly 100 years of search and rescue experience. And one thing we come up across with missing persons a lot is we don't know where to start searching. So before you go out, let someone know roughly what area you're going to be in. You don't need to give them GPS coordinates or anything like that, but let them know where you're going to be, roughly what time you're going to be back, and if you're going to be able to be contacted. I can be contacted here. I'm in full reception. I've already messaged my wife and said, look, this is where I am. If I'm not back by 3, give me a call. If I don't answer, try call someone else because I may need to be rescued. So that's important, because if we don't know where to start searching, more than likely we're not going to start searching, because it'll be like throwing darts at a map of where to go. But if we know roughly where you are, then we know where to go. We know where to start. All right, so as I said, if you get lost, stop, take stock of your situation. Even if your vehicle breaks down while you're out full driving, take stock of your situation. Don't just start doing stuff without thinking. Now, when it comes to your water, drink it. Don't scull it all. but don't put yourself in a state of extended dehydration. So don't be giving yourself just enough to survive straight away. All right. So the first day or so, drink enough water that you need to be able to think clearly, because once you start getting dehydrated, your critical thinking starts to go out the window, mistakes get made, and you can be in big trouble. So don't starve yourself of water. So I know I'm following these trees here, which usually grow around water. So I know that there's a riverbank here somewhere. I'm going to try collect some water and filter it. When it comes to water collection, there is a few pre-bought methods. I have with me a life straw. You can also get water purification tabs. And what they do is they filter out or kill 99.9% of Cryptosporidium, Giardia, E. coli, all those sorts of nasty things that grow in mank water. Because if you get yourself sick, you're going to lose more vital water. Another thing people will do is eat. If you haven't found water, don't go eating a lot. Eat a little bit to give yourself some energy, because the more you eat, the more water gets drawn out of your system to digest that food. So you want to make sure that you've got your water first before you go and get food. I mean, of course, there are extenuating circumstances, like some people need to keep sugar levels and everything, which by all means, do that. All right. So I've just found myself a little four-wheel drive trail that I'm walking on, because it's a lot easier than trudging through the trees, because this time of year they're filled with spiders, and I don't like spiders. Not at all. It's also middle of summer, so there's going to be snakes around. I'm still keeping track of that riverbed, which is just behind these trees here. It's dry at the moment. I walked down there before and it's dry, but I'm hoping that a little bit further downhill there might be a bit of water. So I'll see as if I find some water there. All right, again, I've just run out of water. I've just drank the last of it, and it is hot. I don't know if you can see the sweat pouring off me, but walking around in the heat of the day at 11 o'clock is probably not the best of ideas. Right now, I'd want to be conserving my energy, conserving my water by sitting around in the shade. But that I can do at a later time, because right now I need to find a way of getting some water. Once I have a way of getting some water, then I can sit back and relax a bit. All right, so right here is that dry riverbed. It runs through there. I spotted this dry riverbed by looking at the trees. So if you look over that way, a lot of the trees are small, a lot of spindly sort of bushes. But over here, we got thick green trees and a lot of paperbarks. Paperbarks tend to grow around where there's a bit of moisture. All right, so obviously watching out for snakes and stuff, because obviously where there's a lot of water around where I live, you get a lot of tiger snakes. Now this looks like it's been dry for a while. It usually only gets water in it when it's raining. I mean, given the amount of trees and vegetation, I'm sure if I dig here I'll find something. I don't really want to be digging right now because it's so hot. But I'm just going to follow this riverbed downhill for a little bit. See if I can find some water. And show you how to filter it. Oh, a lot of kangaroos down here too. See if I can filter it out, still it. Just purify it in a way that'll make it drinkable. Alrighty. So I'm still following the riverbed. I've jumped up out of it. It got a little bit difficult to follow it. Bushes started to get a bit thick. So I'm just back out on the track. And I'm just going to take 15 minutes, sit in the shade for a bit. But before I do that, I'm just going to show you a very quick way of finding out which way you're going. Alright. So what we want to do, find an area that's out in the sun. I'm going to show you a very quick solar compass. We need to find ourselves a stick. You want that stick to be as straight as possible. Alright. Now stick that stick in the ground. Obviously it's close to lunchtime, so this isn't going to be the best, but it's going to work. Alright, so you can see that shadow. So what we want to do is we want to find find some honky nuts or something. It's probably something that's not going to blow away anyway, because there's a bit of a breeze picking up now. A couple of bits of roof shit will work. Alright. So I want to make this area as flat as possible. Alright. So I want to put that right on the tip there. Alright, so we got the stick right on the tip of the shadow. Okay, so obviously we know sun goes east to west here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to chill out in the shade for a little bit, because it's getting very hot. And we're going to watch what that shadow does. Alright, so I've cooled down a bit. I haven't gone back to check the compass yet. But I don't seem to be having any luck with the river. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a couple different ways of collecting water. So the two main that you've probably already heard of is the transpiration method, which is the bag over the tree, and your solar still, which is the hole in the ground, fill it with leaves, bag on top. I'm going to show you how to do that. The beauty of the solar still is the solar still can be used for anything that's got moisture in it. So you can use seawater and pour seawater on the sand. The fresh water will evaporate out and drip into your bucket. You can urinate in it. You can use leaves. Anything with moisture in it, the solar still is going to collect that pure water out of it and drip it in there. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to use this tree here. I'm going to see if I can collect some water off it. First thing you want to do, give it a bit of a shake. Make sure there's no bugs or anything that's going to get in your water. Now you're going to need a few things. If you don't have a plastic bag, an excellent use for that is what I usually carry, an emergency poncho. Now I can use that for both the still and the transpiration. Now this one's a white one. Clear is always better, but instead of wasting my poncho, I did find a couple of bits of plastic over where wrapped around a tree where I park. They're a little bit dirty, but I think they're going to work. I just cut it up into squares and folded them up, chucked them in my bag. Alright, so I'll just set the camera down and I'll set up the transpiration method first, and then we'll work on the solar still. Right, so I'm going to need a few things for the transpiration method. I'm going to need a bit of cordage because I don't have a bag, it's only a flat sheet of plastic. And my knife, obviously. One thing, if you're in an emergency situation and you do have a knife, if it's not in your hand, it's in your sheath. If it's not in your sheath, it's in your hand. If you lose your knife, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. Alright, so I start off grabbing as much of the greenery that gets the most sun as I can. I want to bunch that up. And I want to wrap that up so there's no holes in it, so any moisture can escape. Round turn 2.5 hitches should do it. And then what I want to do is I want to stake that to the ground. I want to try and push up some of those leaves so they're not all going to be in my water. It's not that big of an issue, it's just going to give the water a bit of a taste. And that's that. So what's happening here is that tree's pumping water out of the ground to the leaves and it's being dispersed. What I've done here is just created a barrier, so any of that water that's dispersed out of the leaves just gets caught by the plastic bag. It'll condense in there and end up catching water. So up close, so that's just tied up there, no holes in the bag, staked down to the ground, just so that's going to be there. All the water will end up dripping to the bottom. It's not a fast way of collecting water, but it is a way of collecting water. Now, if I had enough plastic, I could set up a whole few of them and collect the water periodically throughout the day. But it will be enough to keep me alive for a few extra days if needed. I'll come back and check that one later, so probably this afternoon if I don't have any luck. We'll move on to the solar still now. So I'll just move my bag over to a nice flat area that gets full sun. Here's one area, no trees immediately around it, so it's not going to end up in the shade. I'll just set you up somewhere. So what I want to do is I want to start digging a hole. I want to fill that hole with leaves, plastic over it with a weight on it, and a cup underneath the plastic. Alright, so we'll start by digging the hole. Alrighty, so what happened there, just to show how hot it is, my GoPro just overheated and shut down because it was out in the sun. So I've just switched to my backup GoPro and I will continue on with the still. So I've started digging the hole. Alright, so I'll just put you back where we were. It is very hot out here, and this sand is just making it hotter. Now this is something you really want to do in the start of the day, because right now it's close to lunchtime and I am pouring out with sweat. I am losing valuable water very quickly. So if you're using a labor intensive method, you really want to do it early morning, late afternoon. Early morning preferred, because then you get a full day of sun to aid with evaporation and collection of your water. Right, so now that I've got the hole, what I'm going to do is I'm going around, I'm going to collect some greenery, some leaves, bits like that, find something I can use to collect the water. I might have to sacrifice my drink bottle, it's okay because I got another plastic bottle I picked up further back along the four-wheel drive track, just so we can collect some water in that. So I'll just go and collect some greens and I'll be back. Alrighty, so I've sacrificed that plastic bottle I found along the four-wheel drive trail, cut the top off. It's going to make a nice cup to collect the water. I've also gone and collected myself some leaves, which is where the water or the moisture is going to come from. So what I want to do, place the leaves in the hole, leaving a bit in the center where I can put the cup where it's not going to fall over. So I'll show you before I cover it up. If I had a rock, there's no rocks out here, it's just all sand. I'd put a rock in the bottom of that to stop that from tipping over. Alright, just need to crush that down a bit, it's sitting a bit high. There we go, that's a bit better. Okay. So that's what I've got. A hole filled with leaves and a cup in the middle. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to cover that with plastic. It has to be semi-tight, so let's do that. Alright, that's not what I want. I don't want the wind. So let me just put you down because I need two hands. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm just covering the ends or the edge of the plastic just to keep the plastic down and to seal the ends, because if you don't seal it, you're going to start losing some of that water. And that's not the aim of the game here. Now the one thing about the solar still that I don't like is it's labor intensive. I'm losing a lot of water building this, and I'm only going to be able to get a certain amount of water out of it. Once those leaves are dry, they're dry. Unlike the transpiration method where the tree is just going to continue pumping water, this one has only got a certain amount of water in it. I can add to that water by urinating in that hole, pouring a few cups of seawater in the sand, or really dirty water. I can pour that in there because all that moisture is going to evaporate out of the sand, hit the plastic, and when we put the weight over the cup, it's just going to drip down to that and fall into the cup. And this sand is very hot. I've got to stop kneeling down on it. Found myself a little wood knot, little stick, and that's just going to sit right over the middle there. And so what that does is when water collects on the plastic, it obviously when it collects enough, it's going to go downhill, get to the lowest point, and drip straight into the cup. So that took about 10 minutes to do. Now, once I was grabbing leaves, I grabbed leaves off the tree, I set the transpiration method, and have a look at this. That's water. That is already working. And that's only 10 minutes. So that's just going to continue building up, dripping down. And in the end, I'm going to end up with a pool of water down here. Obviously a bag would have been better because I would have been able to hang a bit lower, but I didn't have a bag with me, so this is going to work. It's just going to taste like leaves. All right, let's go check on that compass. It's only just over here. Now it's been about 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Alright, just need to find another. There we go, there's a honky nut. As you can see, I can't express how hot it is. It is pouring off me. Alright, so it's still technically the morning, so I know that the sun is going to go to east to west. Alright, so I know roughly which way is west, but this way is more definite. Alright, so we see the shadows moved. That's the bit of roost scout we put on the end of the shadow. As the sun's come up, the shadows moved. Alright, so because it's the morning, that was our first, that was our second. If I draw a line like that, that is west. And obviously, if we know where west is, we can easily figure out north, south, and east. And because I know roughly where I am, I know if I head west, if I get in a situation where I can't get out, or if I lose where I am, I know if I head west, that I'm either going to hit a highway or I'm going to hit the beach. So that's just one very simple way of figuring out which direction you're traveling in. And I'll go through a few more ways in a bit more detail in in another video. I just did this just to take my mind off how thirsty I am right now. Just because I gotta get some water. And keeping your mind busy is very important in an emergency situation. If you lose hope, if you stop thinking you can do it, you're gonna get yourself in a lot of trouble very quickly. So doing little things like this, little things like trying to collect water, keeping your mind busy is very important in a survival situation, because survival is easily 50% state of mind, 50% skills and knowledge. And there is an element of luck in there. At the moment I haven't had any luck with the riverbed. Still following it, still dry. But later on I'll come back and check those methods of the still and the transpiration method, and we'll see how we go from there. Hey, on a quick note, I know that Bear Grylls has done it, but don't drink your pee. Just don't do it. Your urine is filled with salts and toxins and everything that gets flushed out of your blood by your kidneys. Yes, there is some water in it. Yes, it may keep you alive, but you also run the risk of getting sick as well. You can distill your urine using a few different ways. I mean, you can use the solar still, or you can actually boil it and collect the steam using an different still, which I'll show you a bit later. Just don't drink it straight. It's not good for you. You're going to end up with too much salt, too many toxins in your blood, and you'll end up doing some damage over a long enough time. Only if it's absolutely necessary. If you have no means whatsoever of collecting water anywhere else, then maybe. But last resort only. I'm just chilling in the shade at the moment. Sweat pissing off me. It is about 34, 35 degrees in the sun. So yeah, I'm just taking 5. So while I'm sitting in the shade, just cooling down for a bit, because it's very hot out there. There is other ways of purifying water. So collecting water is one part. The 2 ways I've just set up will collect pure water. But if you come across water like a stream or a pond or a dam, a lot of people assume if a stream's running, then it's safe to drink. In a survival situation, assume the opposite. Always assume that the water's contaminated. Never assume that any body of water is safe to drink straight away. A lot of water, especially if it's sitting still, animals come along, they drink from it obviously, but they also urinate, defecate, things die in there, plants drop leaves, it all rots. You end up with things like Cryptosporidium, Giardia, E. coli, those sorts of parasites and bacterias in water. And the last thing you want to do, especially if you're trying to conserve water, is make yourself sick. Last thing you want is to be vomiting and have diarrhea and upset stomachs, because that's just going to waste even more water. There are a few things out there, few products out there that are great for collecting water. I personally carry a life straw. So this life straw is good to purify about 4,000 litres of water. So 4,000 litres, and it will remove 99.99% recurring of all those E. coli, Cryptosporidium, Giardia, parasites out of the water. So all I need to do is pop the bottom off, pop the top, stick that straight in the water and drink. And I can just keep using that for about, they say they're rated to 4,000 litres. Obviously, if I do use one, they're only about 40 bucks. If I do use it in some pretty manky water, by the end of it, I'll probably just replace it. But that's just me. They are rated for some pretty manky sort of water. But that there can be a lifesaver straight away. You can also get water purification tabs. So they're just like a tablet that you can just drop in water. Same thing, kills all those nasty things that live in the water. I don't have any of them on me because I have a life straw. If I didn't have a life straw, I'd probably have the tabs. And there are other things. You can use laundry bleach. I'm not going to go into that. There is a very specific sort of ratio between bleach and water to purify it without poisoning yourself. And I don't want to be responsible for people poisoning themselves by drinking bleach water. So if you're going to be purifying water, stick to something that you can buy specifically for the job. These life straws are great for that. You can also buy a life straw water bottle, which is a water bottle with a life straw built into it, so you can just fill up your water and that'll purify it as you're drinking it, and so you can take water with you going from one place to another. So that's another great way of getting water. Obviously the life straw I would need to be at a water source to use. The life straw water bottle is another fantastic way. So it's been about 10 minutes since I finished the solar still. I just wanted to check it just to show you how these things work. So 10 minutes and I've already got moisture. So that's all water coming out of the leaves, and it's going to run down and drip into the cup in the middle. And that's what we want. While I'm walking, I'll explain to you what I got around my neck here. It's called a shmag, and it is also another way that I can collect water. It's not going to work during summer, purely because we don't get that morning dew. At the moment I'm just using it to keep the sun off the back of my neck because I'm getting absolutely roasted. I can use it to do that. I can use it to make a little sunshade with some sticks or tie it between some branches. But if I was going to use a shmag for water, it would have to be during the cooler times of the year. If I find some long grass or something that's covered in dew, I'll wrap it around one of my legs and I'll go walking through the long grass here, there and everywhere, and the shmag will collect up some water and I'll just suck it straight out of that. Another way of doing it is I can also, not so much where I am now, but if I was down a place where you get a lot of mist, things like that, I could put up a couple of sticks, I could hang the shmag between it and use that as a sheet to catch that mist as it gets blown through it. Just a couple ways of collecting your first drink of the day. But yeah, I'm just using it to keep the sun off the back of my neck. Handy little things they are, the shmags. They've got 1,000,001 uses. So a little bit about rain collection. As I showed you before, I have an emergency poncho in my backpack. Now obviously all an emergency poncho is a sheet of plastic with a hood. Now if I was to hang that sheet of plastic between 4 trees or 4 sticks and have the hood in the middle, that hood will be a perfect place to collect water because it'll land on my poncho, run down to the middle, fall through the hole where your head goes. So a poncho also can be great for collecting rainwater and great for keeping water off you too. In a survival situation, you really don't want to be wet all the time, especially your feet. You start wet feet all the time, you start collecting fungus, and if you can't walk, it drastically reduces the chances of survival. So I gave up on finding water from the creek back there. So I'm going for a bit of a walk to where I know there is water. I was trying not to use this water purely because this water where I'm going to now is filled with industrial runoff. So it's very mank. It would be my last resort to drink. Obviously I'm not going to drink it, but I will show you how to purify water and how to kill all those bad things if you don't have something like a life straw. So I found another bottle on the trail, so we'll use that. We'll make a little filter and filter out what we can. And then I've got a little stove in my backpack. I'll talk about fire starting in another video, not this one. It's the middle of summer. I'm not going to be lighting fires in the bush. Yeah, it's not a very good idea right now, not for the sake of a video. So I'm going to use a camp stove, and I'm going to be in a parking lot around where I parked my car to do that, purely because I don't want to start a bushfire. So when you're boiling water to purify it, you need to get that water to a rolling boil. And I'll show you what a rolling boil is a little bit later. And once you get that rolling boil, you need to keep it at a rolling boil for a minimum of 1 minute in order to be considered safe. And then you just let it cool down, and it should be all right to drink. It's probably not going to taste very nice because the boiling won't get rid of the taste of all the dead leaves, all the mud, anything else that's in the water, but it's going to keep you alive. One thing about survival is you've got to have a bit of a strong stomach. Although in saying that, some strange things happen when you're in a survival situation. Some strange things happen to your brain. You got a part of your brain called the want center, and when you get into a bit of a survival situation and you are desperately requiring food and water, that want center of your brain will kick into overdrive, and you'll be able to stomach things that you normally wouldn't be able to, which is why when people are really hungry and they eat something, they always say that's the best tasting thing they've ever had in their life. That's the want center of their brain being activated. It'll just make everything taste nicer so you can stomach more. It's just one of those handy little things. Just like your brain has a compartment in there that will subconsciously retain a lot of the information in this video. You might not know that you've remembered it until it needs to be called up upon. So your brain has its own little survival kit built in as well to help you survive. So even just by watching this video, you're going to retain some of this information without knowing that you've retained it, and it'll be called up on if needed. Human brain is an amazing thing, especially when it's the only thing keeping you from expiring out here. Okay, so I found the water. This is what I'm dealing with. It is mank. There is algae growing in it. There's not much of it. It's not flowing very fast. So the chances of this being contaminated are quite high. I know it gets a little bit thicker up here, so I'm going to head up here, watching continuously for the old danger noodle or two. I saw a danger noodle back up that way in the reeds. By danger noodle, I mean a snake. I'll find, here we go, place where I can get down here in the shade. Alright, when collecting water from a water source like this, you want to try and collect it from the top. So there's a nice little deeper patch right here. Oh. Don't want to get my schmug too wet. So I want to try and collect water from the top. I don't want to try and get all that muck from the bottom. Now I could drink straight out of this with my life straw. There's a few floaties in there, but it looks pretty clean. There's no oil slick on the top of it, which is good, because I am at the back of an industrial area now. So let's put that on there. Those two other methods I set up before, they're very slow. That's the problem with them. And if you need water quickly, you're gonna have to collect it and boil it, purify it in a way. If I had purification tabs, I'd throw one in there now and that'd purify that. Or I could drink straight out of this stream with my life straw. But for the purpose of this, I'm gonna head back to my car to where the parking lot is, and I'll show you how to boil it up, and I'll also show you a way to using a couple bits of pipe and a bottle and a can I found to actually create a still. So creating a still on the stove is a great way if you're stranded on a beach to collect seawater and turn that to desalinate it, get the salt out of it. The only problem is, just climb up here. The only problem is with doing that, collecting it by boiling it and collecting the steam, is it is then distilled water. And distilled water doesn't have any of the salts or any of the minerals that your body requires. But that can easily be rectified, especially if you're distilling seawater. You just put a pinch of salt, very little bit of salt in there, and that'll keep enough salt in your system so your brain can continue sending down electrical signals to everything to keep them working. So I'm just sitting in the shade again, just taking another break, just because it is very hot out there. And while I'm doing that, I'm just gonna make a little filter for this water out of this bottle I found. So I've already put some holes in the end of it, and just about to cut off the top. And so what we're going to do then is we're going to crush up some charcoal from this burnt tree behind me, collect some sand and some bits and pieces like that, and I'll show you how to make a filter to get most of the bigger particulates and mud and stuff out of your water, just to give it that extra bit of purification, so then when you boil it, it will have a bit more. So I'll just put the camera down somewhere. It's a bit hard to find a place to put the camera down, so I'll just lean you up against the tree here. Alright. So I've cut the top off that, got the holes in the bottom. What I want to do is I want to collect some charcoal, crush it up, and put it in the bottom of here. Activated charcoal, crushed charcoal is really good at filtering water. So that's what we want as our last bit. So I'll collect some up, crush it up, whack it in. So what I'm doing now, I've collected some charcoal and I'm just going to start crushing that up and throw it in there. So I have my charcoal on the bottom. I'm then going to want to put some sand in here. Now where I am, there isn't really any rocks, but what I would do after that is I would put small rocks, like little pea gravel pebbles, and or some gravel, and then some bigger rocks in that. But I'm just doing the best with what I've got here. So for me right now, it's just charcoal and sand. Alright, so I found a can as well. So what I'm going to do is, I don't really want to taint my water bottle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour the water into the can and yeah, pour the water bottle through the filter into the can. Good thing about a can is, I mean, you can boil water in a plastic bottle and it won't melt, it'll just taste bad, but I can boil water in a can quite easily. So I'll put you back down and we'll get onto that. So it'll take a little bit for the water to soak through. So it's going to take a little bit for the water to soak through there. As you can see, if you can see it, slowly coming down. So it takes a while, but and it'll look dirtier, but I can guarantee that that water will be cleaner than the crystal clear water in that bottle that I got straight out of the drain. So as you can see, it's starting to drip out now. And now that water has been filtered by both the sand and the charcoal. I mean, I can afford to waste a little bit of water where I am now, but normally if you can't, as you can see, if you can see that, you can see bits of charcoal and stuff in there on the top. Bits of charcoal on that in there. But that water will be free from a lot more contaminants than if I was drinking straight out of that ditch. The first bit of the water is always the dirtiest. It's now starting to come out a bit cleaner. But I can collect that up, put that as a rolling boil for 1 minute minimum, and that'll be good to drink just like that, as long as I can collect it. And that's how you make a basic water filter if you don't have a life straw. So yeah, this will filter out a lot of the algae and bits and pieces that you pick up in the water. And like I said before, a bit of charcoal never hurt anyone. Alrighty guys, so what I've done, grabbed a bit of tubing. This tubing's bigger than what I'd normally use, but if you're out with your four-wheel drive, washer bottle tubing's perfect. What I've done is I've put 2 holes in the top of this lid of a bottle I found, And so one, the tubing goes in, the other one is just to let excess air pressure out, otherwise it's not going to work properly. The other bit of tubing goes in the can, but doesn't go in the water, it goes just above it. Now you need to seal that off the best you can. And then what's going to happen is that water's going to boil, that steam's going to travel up through here, and it's going to condense into this bottle. Now this method will work with seawater as well as that water we've collected before, because that water's a little bit mank still, a little bit dirty. I can just boil it and drink it once it cools down, but I just wanted to show you this way as well, because this way works with seawater. So if you're ever stuck on a beach or something like that, the seawater will work. So I'll get back to you when it does. Righto, so that can has been boiling for about 10 minutes in my stove. I've had to plug the hole a little bit more, just with some grass and sticks and things, just so I was losing a little bit more steam than I'd like. But as you can see, this water's boiling, the steam's going into the hose. Obviously outside is cooler than inside there, so that's condensing in that hose. As you can see, there's water droplets forming in there, there's water forming in the bottom, it's cooling in that area. And I tipped the hose up just before, and after about 10 minutes, I've got water in there. So this method is working, and this method is a great method for collecting seawater, collecting fresh water out of seawater, with the added bonus of having those salt deposits. So if I was doing this with seawater, I would grab a little pinch of that salt and put it in the water, just to get those essential salts back into my body as well, because you do lose a lot of salt through sweat, and your body does require salt in your blood and throughout your body, because that's how you electrical signals get passed through your brain. You need the salt. So as I said, 10 minutes, I'm already collecting water. A few final thoughts on water collection is you need to take into account a few things: how long you're going to be there, how much water you already have, and how much work does it take to get the water. The transpiration bag, the one that I hung up in the tree, that is a very easy way to collect water, but it is a very slow way of collecting water. The solar still, I'm going to have to replace the leaves if I wanted to collect more water. That water in that can, because I'd collected it and I'd filtered it, if I wanted to drink that, I'd just let it cool, and that'd be perfectly safe to drink. All those Ectosporidium, Giardia, E. coli, other bacteria and viruses in there will be dead by now, because it's been at a rolling boil for well over a minute. So if I let that cool, I could drink that right now. You need to take into account how long you're going to be there, how much water you've got. So you want to start trying to collect water before you run out of water. So if I got myself into a situation where I knew it may be a few days, because sometimes when we go out searching for people, they could be out there for up to a week before we find them, if we find them, start trying to find yourself some water. 3 days without water is all you've got, as a general rule. Food, that can be an afterthought, because you can survive up to 3 weeks without food, as a general rule. So get onto your water before you run out of water. Alright, so the time's now 5 to 7, and as you can see, the sun's going down. The heat has dropped off incredibly. Right now is the perfect time for me to get up, go walking around and have a look, see how much water I've collected. My transpiration bag and solar still have been down for roughly 7 or 8 hours, and I'm just looking for my marker that I put down before. I found the compass that I set up before, so yep, found my stick, and let's go see how much water we've got in 7 or 8 hours. So there's the transpiration bag coming up, as you can see. Let's have a look, see what that is. Now, I'm not expecting too much water, so I want to give that a bit of a tap, let the water go to the bottom. Alright, so we don't have much in there at all. Still have water up there. There's a bit of water in the bottom there. I'll take that with me when I go. But now we'll check the solar still. Let's just get some of that water moving to fall into the cup. Because we want to get as much of this water as possible. Oop, I've upset an ant. Alright. Now you notice that the leaves have all gone really dry because we've just evaporated all the moisture out of them. The bottom of that plastic is really wet. And there's not much, but there's a little bit of water in there. This was only a very small still, and normally I'd leave it for 24 hours before coming to check it. But yeah, we still got some water. And that'll work. So I've just taken down my transpiration bag and drunk the mouthful of water that was in it, and found out why I didn't get much water. Turns out that when I put it in the tree, I put a hole in the plastic and I didn't see it. So a lot of that moisture that I collected had dripped out of the bottom. But now I know that there's a hole there, I can fix that, and if I needed to, I'd set it back up and I'd go again. So that's it for now. I'm just enjoying the sunset, walking back out. Got a few kilometers to go to where my car is, so it's probably going to be dark by the time I get out of here. So that's just a few methods of collecting water. There are other methods out there, and I'll probably run through a few in a couple of other videos. As I said, this will be a series of videos on different things, all to do with giving yourself a bit more time to survive while awaiting rescue. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Oh, and just one more thing before I go. I only know how to film on a GoPro. I have no experience in editing and creating videos, so any tips in the comments would be handy as hell. So I'm Spud from Survive It Southwest, and I'll see you next time.